Hello all of you beautiful people, Jules here for WhatCulture.com, and today I want to talk to you about the fun fiesta that is video games. I know, shock horror considering the channel, right? But more specifically, I want to talk to you about video games and the concept of saving. Now, it's a thing that we actually take for granted nowadays, and is actually quite essential to the overall experience, especially when you consider that some video games are hundreds of hours long. Saving is essential, and therefore it's absolutely brutal when some video games turn around and say, nah, we're not playing ball, pal. That's right, you'll find times when video games, you know, the thing that you spend your hard-earned money and time on, will actually keep you at arm's length from progress with either terrible checkpointing or, as is the case of these entries, will actively not let you save. Are you confused? Well, let's load a checkpoint right now and restart afresh, because I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 8 video games that don't let you save. Number 8. Grand Theft Auto. Hearing that a Grand Theft Auto game has issues with saving sounds pretty wild in an age where GTA 5 is a solid example of a game with good checkpoints and saving features for players. But we're not talking about GTA 5 here, or anything close to it for that matter. No, this issue developed in 1997 when the first game came out, and it was designed so that you could only save between levels instead. Well, it doesn't sound like much of a big deal, right? Well, the issue is here, as many hardened veterans may tell you, is that the first GTA had a devilishly long final level that you couldn't save in at any point. This level could take up to 6 hours to get through, and if you went through it well aware that you needed to quit out for whatever reason, you'd have to start afresh all over again. This is especially cruel because playing through the game, it at first seems like you'll have ample opportunity to save, only to have the game then deny you the ability to do so at the one point that you most needed it. Number 7. Left 4 Dead 2. Now, Left 4 Dead 2 isn't exactly a game that you think about having a lot of saves, but that's mainly because none of it is actually done manually. Ever since playtesters told Valve that the original game was too difficult because the team dying would send you back to the lobby, the series has had frequent checkpoints to take you back to in order to make it feel a little bit more fair. Unless that is, that you sign up for this to be revoked. Enter Left 4 Dead 2's Iron Man mode, where everything gets substantially more intense. Not only do witches murder you immediately if you get caught, but if you all die, you don't just go back to a checkpoint, no, you go back to the lobby. This is uniquely brutal in that obviously the end of a level is generally going to be the most difficult part, and if you just fail to clear it by a hair's breadth, then guess what? You're still getting a first-class ticket back to the lobby to either rage quit for good or painstakingly try again. Better luck next time. Number 6. Amnesia The Dark Descent, Justine. The original Amnesia The Dark Descent lets you save more or less whenever, and for good reason. You're about as sturdy in this game as a kilogram of flour in a thin plastic bag, and since you're being hunted by some decidedly violent and terrifying beings, your chances of being slam dunked into an early grave, well, they're pretty high, which is why it's so surprising that the DLC for this game, simply named Justine, actually doesn't have any saving capabilities in it at all. It's not a long game by any means, as you can breeze through it in about an hour if you know roughly where you're going, and an hour and a half if you want to inspect everything, or just plain unlucky. However, if you're especially unlucky, it's going to take you a lot longer, as you're going to get stuck replaying swathes of this game after having your neck snapped by one of Justine's suitors. Similarly, you also get the option to take several innocent NPCs throughout this game, which is made slightly more challenging by the fact that if you fail to save one and want to see what happens if you save them all, you're likely going to have to restart the entire thing. Number 5. Wolfenstein 2 The New Colossus. If you're as questionably skilled at shooters as, say, me, you've probably died at least more than a handful of times in Wolfenstein 2, especially if you see red and decide to charge into gunfire like a professional moron. As such, many players would likely last approximately, 12 seconds in the Mein Leben difficulty setting, as it's a mixture of the hardest difficulty setting and also the fact that you only have one life, and you have to play through the entire game without dying or quitting. Brilliant. Importantly, Wolfenstein 2 The New Colossus takes around 10 to 11 hours to finish its campaign, so not only do you have to play borderline flawlessly, but you have to do so for a minimum of 10 hours or it's all worth absolutely nothing. It's a genius way to add replay value to those who are hardened veterans at the game and the franchise, but it's fair to say that if you are going to try and challenge this, you're going to need a ton of preparation beforehand. Number 4. Batman Arkham Origins. When a difficulty mode is named I Am the Night, you're almost definitely going to want to try and play it, simply so you can whisper it under your breath as you beat the game. Let's try it now, shall we? I am the night. Ooh, I got shivers. But it's also a task not to be taken lightly. I Am the Night basically makes Batman Arkham Origins into a roguelike, as you have to complete the entire game in a single life, with your file being deleted the minute that you die. So while you can save, your save won't save you. Which can actually make you play far worse, as you're aware that your mistakes are more of a big deal and could potentially lose you hours and hours of playtime. The base game of Origins takes about 13 hours, but you will definitely want to play more, as you're going to have to try and be safe, and that adds about an extra 10 or so hours of side missions to allow you to level up and unlock some possibly life-saving skills. But that in turn gives you more time to potentially die and lose it all. Though you can desperately quit out and restart it if you're about to die, it's still a game mode that leaves you mere hits away from a deleted save the entire time, which is tense to say the least. Number 3, Dead Rising. The first Dead Rising's Infinity Mode is the stuff of legend in significant proportions of the gaming community, because it is simply absolutely insane. Infinity Mode takes away the checkpoints and save options that the game had prior, with the intention being of just seeing how long talented players can manage to stay alive in these more dire circumstances. And while this alone doesn't sound so bad, it's worth remembering that there was one achievement that most people were aiming for when they played this mode, which was called 7-Day Survivor. This achievement required you to play for a whopping 14 hours in Infinity Mode without dying. And not 14 in-game hours either, 14 real-life hours. This meant that you'd have to sacrifice, or at least strategize, things like sleeping and eating in real life for a whole day, morning to night, which is absolutely insane when one false move means that you've potentially got to do it all over again. That is, if you can be bothered to try again, because many have likely tried and discovered that it's not really worth it. Number 2, Getting Over It. If Getting Over It had any kind of save and load mechanic, it basically wouldn't be the game that it is, because half of the point of this mountain climbing game is to fall again and again and again and to lose your bloody mind as you do so, but ultimately it's to get over each fall. It's sort of a weird way to teach you to be zen, in a sense. If you could save scum your way up to the top, it would be a very different kettle of fish, as you could just reload every time you fumbled and fell from the heights that you reached. But as comparatively relaxing as that would actually be, it would definitely defeat the point, as you'd never be able to, pull up your sleeves and start getting over it. Now, by rule of thumb, it's usually a bad idea for games not to include a way for players to save at specific points, but it's actually the lack of control that you have over your save state that is this strange blessing, because when bad things happen in real life, you've got to learn to accept them. After you finish screaming at them, of course. And number 1, Starion. Back in the day, a game having any sort of checkpoint system or save mechanic was a blessing, not a foregone conclusion. Often you'd have to quickly jot down a code after finishing a level just to be able to come back to that point if you failed the next one, or otherwise find yourself back at square one. This was especially the case of the lesser-known ZX Spectrum. Now, since this didn't have the same technological capacity as our beefy setups do today, games for it had to be significantly less intense, which often translated to them having little to nothing in the way of saving. This is shown best with the infamous case of a little game called Starion, and by little we mean that Starion had over 200 levels and took most of a day to play, minimum. While this is insane, it wasn't actually the fault of the developer, as the issue was that Starion took up almost the entire RAM of the ZX Spectrum, meaning there simply wasn't room to try adding in anything even resembling a save system. But this did mean, if you really wanted to see the entire game, you'd have to stoically march through 240-something levels on offer, all the while unsure if the bug that occasionally broke the game on the 200th level would strike you down. Brilliant. And there we go, my friends, that was 8 video games that don't let you save. I hope that you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below. If you want to chat to me further, you can do so over on Twitter at RetroJ0, or you can swing by Live and Let's Dice, as my personal gaming channel where I stream every single Wednesday and Sunday. But before we go, my friends, I just want to say one thing. We detailed today a lot about video games that didn't let you save, about games where you had to try and take a chance in order to succeed, and sometimes you had to deal with failure. And I feel like we can apply that to our real lives, because while we can play our lives as safely as possible, you might end up losing out on experiences that make you a better and more rounded person. Don't be afraid of failure. We've all tried and failed in our lives, and I assure you that while failure is an honest teacher, it is one that hopefully will shape you into a better person. person. You can use it to gain perspective. You can use it to know when you need help. And most of all, you can use it to know when things simply aren't right for you. So don't be afraid of trying. Go out there and absolutely smash it, because I know that there's potential within all of you to make this world a better and more brilliant place. Big love from me to you. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.